So welcome everyone, Nick Wagner Sr. It's 8 o'clock Eastern time on a Sunday night, which means it's another episode of the Full Potential Podcast. And I appreciate you tuning in instead of watching NFL Sunday Night Football, because I think I have a better guest than the current lineup on the game tonight. So Chris Allen, welcome to the show. And we'll get into your full introduction, but I just want to first say thanks for making time today.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Nick.
We've got a little bit of like funky setup tonight with the live stream because we got Chris on two devices to make sure that he has enough bandwidth to make this happen. But we are tech people, so we figured it out and we are good, and we can see his smiling face and we can hear his voice. So Chris, every Sunday I find or the guests find me, and I interview someone with a really, I think, unique and inspirational career story to be on my podcast. I've been doing this for over 2.5 years now. It's been a little over a year since I've been doing it live on Sundays on LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube. And then I take the awesome, interview that we do and I'll put it into the podcast form on all the major podcast platforms. But as I said before we were getting on today, I do this because I think everyone's unique career journey can inspire others for their own personal career journey. So you have done an amazing amount of things in your, and I'm going to say relatively short career because you're still a young guy. And we're going to dive into those today, but I'm hoping that you can inspire some of my guests to hopefully think what could possibly be with their career by hearing someone as successful as you.
No, that's great. I'm all about paying it forward. So I'm happy to be here and share.
So, and we're gonna get into. So for those of you that don't know Chris, so I'll say this: if you're in Connecticut like me and Chris, where we both live and where Chris's business is, you may know Chris because he is involved in quite a bunch of organizations around the state, from a volunteering perspective, a philanthropy perspective, and you just may have heard of some of his companies. So, which we'll dive into Chris in detail. But Chris currently is the CEO of iCleanse, which we're going to talk about, which is I think really timely considering everything going on with COVID. But people might not know you from that business, Chris. They probably do know the company called iDevices, and we'll dive into that too, which was a company that you started around the Internet of Things and it's the smart home.
Yep.
But let's start, Chris, with probably one of my favorite questions I ask every guest. When pre-COVID, when we actually went places and did stuff, right? So when we were going to conferences or going to maybe a meeting to introduce yourself to some people, to network or something, how did you introduce yourself? When someone was like, "Who is Chris Allen?" How did you actually introduce yourself?
I mean, after I exited the business of iDevices, it's basically I've been a tech entrepreneur, for the last give or take 12, 13 years, and done a bunch of different things. So I'm usually not big into titles. I'm not into, hey, I'm the CEO of XYZ or anything like that. Pretty down to earth guy. I think people that work with me will tell you that. So I don't get into like, hey, I did this, I did that. I'm Superman. I'm just like I'm anybody else. It's just a known dude.
You're just a guy that likes technology. I love how humble you are because I think as we get into your journey, people are going to realize you're more than just a guy that likes technology. But okay, we'll go with that. So you mentioned you're a tech entrepreneur, right? Which I think, and I think you'll probably agree with this. Right now, there's like a big, I don't know if it's I don't know what it is, but there's like a huge desire for a lot of people to be entrepreneurs now, right? Like owning a startup or being your own boss is like really cool right now. I feel like it's like the in thing to do with a lot of people. You've been doing this for a long time. So I want to go way back to when you were little Chris. Was your dream when you were growing up, Chris, to run your own business and to be an entrepreneur and be in this tech world? Or was your dream something completely different?
Way back in the day, I mean, my first job that I had was as a newspaper boy. I was 9 years old. My father passed away when I was 5, and I started mowing lawns around the neighborhood at about 8 years old. I used to take my mom's lawnmower and, make like $20 for the neighbor or whatever. But I was just always somebody that was a go-getter, is the way I look at it, thinking back on those times. But I didn't have a goal of being a big CEO or have any title. I couldn't even tell you what that was back then. I just knew that I wanted to enjoy what I did, and my mom really instilled that in me. And make sure that you're happy doing what you're doing. And I love what I do. I wake up every day energized, ready to go, and excited about what I'm doing each day.
So you mentioned your father passed away at 5, which I'm sure was a tragic experience for someone, like especially a young child. Do you think that has shaped who you are as both like an entrepreneur and as a father yourself, losing your father at such a young age?
It shaped who I am as a person all the way around. I lost my mom when I was 26, so I lost both my parents relatively young. My
Wow.
father passed away of ALS, which is a pretty tough disease to have, for those of you that know it. And my
Yeah.
mom passed away of cancer. So I tend to look at life a little bit differently than the rest of the world, from the standpoint of I truly carpe diem, seize each day, try and do what I want to do as soon as I can do it. Whether it's a trip, a family gathering, some sort of adventure I want to do. I really don't ever put things on the back burner very long. People that know me really well know that. I go at 100 miles an hour, and I tend to just like do it. Sometimes not thought out well, but it's okay. Shit happens, and that's the way it goes. So, but at the end of the day, I live life to the fullest, and especially with my kids, I'm more about what I learned from having lost parents that young is that life isn't about what you have at the end of the day, because you can't take it with you. I've never seen a casket with a thule that you can put on the top and stuff all your money in, right? And really, what you leave at the end of the day is your legacy of who you were as a person to those around you, and what type of father you were to your kids, as well as what type of experiences you created. So I like to tell my kids I like having experiences with them, whether it's a trip, whether it's just playing games here at the house. They're older now; they're 18 and 19, but that's what I focus on. So it definitely did change how maybe my outlook on life is, and how I think about things a little bit differently. I think it's also why I run so fast, because I always think that hey, my dad died at 56, my mom died at 65. Okay, I'm 43. You say I'm young, I say I'm old. I'm almost at the end if I go the same time as them. So
It's an interesting perspective, and we'll have to get into if how that impatience has helped you in your career and how that impatience has maybe not helped you at certain times. So we'll have to get into that as we go through your journey, Chris. So you mentioned you were mowing lawns, you were a paper boy. What was your first like official job that you actually like paid taxes on, and like maybe you were 16, right? And you got a job. What did you do?
yeah, my first job was at Cedric Pharmacy. It was a little drugstore, literally 2 blocks from my house in West Hartford. I ran the cash register, and then I also did. I was I guess a ball plugger. I used to pick up all the balls at the driving range while people were trying to ping you. Uh, so I did that for a while too.
And I know you did go to college, right? So you did go to college for a couple of years. Was the expectation of you to always go to college? Was that something that your mom and your father before he passed would have expected of you, or was that your decision?
Um, I think that was going along with the crowd. I did go to college, but I went for 3 months and then I dropped out. I started my first real business when I was 16, as soon as I got my first car that I bought, with my money I saved up for my paper route. And, it's funny, but not funny. My father was a superintendent of schools, and my mom was a principal. And so, like, all the big educators and their son drops out of college after 3 months, and um, you know, but I think I made out okay. So it just wasn't for me. I don't learn that way.
Right, right. What was that first business that you started at 16?
I did landscaping, a little landscaping company with my best friend, Mike, and I took we took some old my father's old tools and cut up a bunch of 2x4s. We made a trailer. We got some lawnmowers, and we go around. And we made great money. I mean, we were making great money at high school. He's driving a Beamer. I've got a jacked up Jeep, but we paid for it all ourselves. So, it's it's good to be able to make your own money and not to rely on anybody. And that's
Yeah,
where I caught the
yeah.
bug, I think.
No, I mean you definitely learned this at a young age, and I just laugh because we have a lot of similar experiences when we were in high school. I did landscaping and sealed driveways and all that fun stuff, painted decks, right? Like because same thing, right? Like I just loved. I don't know, something about like, especially when you're that young, like, oh wow, I can do this, right? I can actually make money and not have to rely on my parents to give me money. It was always a cool feeling. So you said college wasn't for you. What was and look, I think you're seeing more and more companies now saying they're not going to require college degrees, right? 4-year degrees. You're
Yep,
seeing more and more kids go to community college for 2 years or go to a technical school for 2 years. So I think the direction or the trend with higher education is, I think, changing.
definitely.
Why was college not for you, and what did you decide to do instead of college? What did that look like?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing for college, when it came to me, is I went to Allegheny College out in Meadville, Pennsylvania. It's a good school and everything, and nothing against it. I think I probably would have done better at like where my son is at Northeastern or something along those lines because I need to see the applicability of what I'm learning and what I'm working on and how I'm going to use it in a day-to-day situation. I think college fundamentally has a few things wrong, and this is just my opinion, but the whole prerequisite courses of like rounding you out as a person I think is a bunch of BS. I'm spending, a lot of money right now for my daughter and my son in college, and those courses are things that they can learn afterwards, and they can follow their heart if they want to learn more about history or the arts or whatever it might be. And I get we're trying to create well-rounded people, but the cost is just astronomical. I'm blessed to be able to pay for it, but I question it every time I stroke a check. Um, and for me, my big thing from my mom when she was supportive of me leaving was you have to have a plan of what you want to do. So I went back to what I was doing in high school. I was like, wow, if I really took that little thing with just me and my buddy and I blew it up and I made it big, I could probably make some really good money. So I did some forecasts and I had no money because I spent it on college and we weren't of any means. We were definitely not wealthy at all. And so I wrote a 54-page business plan after I read a couple of books about how to write a business plan and went to the SBA with zero assets, like nothing in my pocket. And they gave me a $38,000 loan to get me started for some mowers and, truck and, some trailers. And then it just blew up from there. I mean, yeah, I ran with it. I was a young
So
kid making a crap ton of money.
that's such an awesome story, and I love how and to your point, right? Like you mentioned, you didn't really learn from college, but you clearly, it wasn't that you didn't have the drive, right, or the actual skills to complete it because you said you read a book, you wrote a business plan, you figured that out. I mean, a lot of people wouldn't even be able to figure that out. You got the loan, so I think to your point, it wasn't that you weren't smart enough to go to college. You chose not to go to college. So I would be interested to hear, and we're not going to obviously talk to your kids. I would really be interested to hear what your kids think of them going to college, knowing that dad didn't go to college and he's been this successful. So, but we'll talk about that. That's a whole other conversation for another time.
Yeah.
Um, so you did the landscaping business,
Yep.
and it sounds like you were really successful with it. At what point? Because I know, like, and I always go through everyone's LinkedIn and look at their bios and everything. At what point did you transfer to being a financial advisor from doing the landscaping business? My other question is why?
Yeah. So landscaping was great. I was making great money. I was young. I got engaged at 20, and I was getting married at 21. And while landscaping is great, it sucks up a lot of your time. Winters, plowing for, like this storm that we just had, you're out for, 48, 60 hours. You can't go anywhere. And it was beating me up. I was doing masonry and all sorts of crazy stuff. And so I didn't want to be a ragged old man. So I had an opportunity from Prudential Financial asked me to join them and become a financial advisor, and they put me through training, and you know I went on to that for wow. I did other things in the interim, but I was really a financial advisor up until last year. I had my Series 766, and I passed all that stuff on my own. So got it done, and I had a good career. But I think I'm one of those guys. I definitely have ADD and ADHD. I've never been properly diagnosed, but my attention span, like once I get to a certain point with a business, I can't tend to okay, this is kind of boring now. Like what else can I do with it, or what else can I do? Um, so I've done that a number of times throughout my career. A Renaissance man is something I call myself. When you ask that first question, because I'm good at a lot of things, but master of none, right? And I think that's, if you ask a lot of the folks that have been super successful, way more successful than I am, I think a lot of them are like that, right? They know enough about certain aspects of the business, but hire the right people around them
Yeah.
to make them super successful, by having the right people.
Well, I read through some of the your posts and the information on LinkedIn about one about when you sold iDevices, and I think the way that the what you just said, I think you could clearly see in the way that you treated your employees, right? And how you built the team, because you seemed very team focused, team oriented, really appreciative of everyone who worked with you. Right? It wasn't you that did it; it was the team that did it. So I definitely love the. You are one humble guy for as successful as you've been. So I love that about you. So tell me how this happened. So you're a successful financial advisor. You did that for, I think it was probably around 5 years, like maybe full time, according to LinkedIn. Um, and then this whole idea of this whole let's talk about this whole idea of tech entrepreneur, right? So you started a business called iDevices, and I want to hear how this happened, because I think you said that was 2009 is what I read what I read online, was when you actually founded the company.
Yep.
How did iDevices come to be, and were you just like learning about tech and the Internet of Things and smart home like for fun on the side while you're a financial advisor? How did this happen? Tell me the story.
Yeah, so I'd actually I had started my own financial advisory firm and sold it, and then I bought an Allstate insurance office and was doing auto, home, and life, and out of a big office in Bristol, and I just got my first iPhone. I was like, oh, this is going to help me, in the business and everything else, and I happened to be out back grilling, with using an old Brookstone cooking thermometer. And I was like, wow, it would be so cool if I didn't have to carry this other thing around and it just went right to my phone. I didn't know squat about Bluetooth, serial profiles, A2DP, or any of that crap. I literally knew nothing, but I was like, it would be cool. And so I went about Googling how to do a provisional patent, and I sat at my dining room table at my ex-wife's house back in the day, our first house, and I drew it with colored pencils. They were actually my mom's colored pencils, and I drew out like the first iGrill and sent it in via FedEx to the patent office, and then decided that I was going to actually try and build a team around. First it was contractors because I couldn't afford salaries, but hired some contractors, begged, borrowed, and bartered with them to, for stock, with equity, all sorts of different things to get them on board, and started actually building it up. And the iDevices name came just because I saw a future of a lot of these devices. And I figured, you have the iDevices brand and you could have all these other things underneath it. Now, if I had been really smart, I would have had a lot more products underneath me, but because I got inundated with people calling me to like help them invent something. But I just couldn't. I didn't know enough what I was doing. Today's a different story, but like back then, I was just drinking from the fire hose, trying to make things work and make a product. So
So it was really that simple. You were just grilling, and we're like, you know what? Like this would really make a lot of sense if this could be on my phone. And you're just like such an achiever. You just went and just drew it immediately and put a patent together.
I mean, it was like it looked like an eyeball. It was like, because it was the eye grill. It looked like an eyeball. It was nothing fancy. But I explained like that it would graph your meat temperature over time, and that it would like auto connect to your phone or your tablet, and it could look like a meat thermometer. I did all these different things. So I tried to put as much as I could in there, and then I went to lawyers for the formal patent later on, but at least I did a provisional, and got it started. I think the single biggest thing that I did there though was, as I started down the process, I reached out to Apple off of John Glincy's email he left up on a PowerPoint that he was giving at WWDC. And I just emailed him out of the blue, and I just said, "Hey, listen, I have this idea for this product, and we can't use serial port on the iPhone. It's locked. We can't get to it, and we really need to use that." And they called me a couple hours later, and they were like, "We're going to help you make this happen. The executive's the senior product. They want to make it come to life." So that was a pretty big moment.
And that was so. So let's pause there for a second because I want to, for everyone listening, this is a really important point. You just shot them an email that you didn't know this individual obviously, and
Yep.
and told them what you wanted to do, and you took a chance and said, "Why not? I might as well email them and see what happens." And they got back to you.
Yeah, I mean, they called me, like I said, within a couple hours. I was on the side of Avon Mountain, coming back from my office, and I remember I pulled over. I did a happy dance on the side of the road. I was like, "Holy crap! Apple just called me," because it came up on. I was driving a Prius at the time, and it came up on the screen, Apple, and I was like, "What?" And I picked up, and that was it was a crazy day, for sure.
No, I think that just shows. I think a lot of people, Chris, don't do things because they think it could never happen. And I think that my point with kind of pausing there is you said why not and just did it, and look what happened. And if you hadn't made that email, who knows what would have happened, right? Um, you're not. So let's be real here, right? You're not like a Uber technologist at this point, right? You're a guy that wants to create a device to hook up his meat thermometer to his iPhone, right? Like you've never built anything like this before in your life, right? You didn't go to school for computer science. So you put a team together. How long did it take to actually build the actual first product that you actually put to market to sell? Like what was
Yeah,
that? What was that time frame?
Yeah, so I actually talked to Apple like the week before this in 2008, um, and I'm sorry, 2009, and they said that we'd like you to come out for our WWDC conference, and hopefully you can have a Frankenstein prototype by then. I didn't know what I was saying. I was like, yeah, sure, and I I had some contractors that I put together, and so I fly out to California and sit down with them, and it was a Frankenstein. It was a big box, and it just had a probe, and then it had a app that had the temperature broadcasting, and they were like, "We love it. Can you make this and productize it for November of 2010?" And I was like, "Holy crap, that's like 6 months." This is April,
Wow.
and yeah, and I like an idiot said yes. I was like, "Sure, yeah, that shouldn't be a problem." I got with all my contractors, and they were like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, we gotta do it. Apple wants it. They want to see it come to life." And they had a big project coming. It was the iPod Touch that was coming out, and they thought it'd be great to launch with it. And so basically, I just put together a process. I thought about how I could keep people motivated because they were all independent contractors, but we just got on calls every day. I would have a call in the morning, I would have a call at night. And in the morning, we talk about everything that everybody had to accomplish that day to stay on pace. And there were interdependencies, and they would have to live up to it at the end of the day. We didn't get this done. We did get this done. We didn't get that done. And we did that for months. And on Black Friday 2010, we launched an Apple retail across the country. We were the first connected product in their stores. Um, and that was another pretty amazing call because I had become friends with a guy by the name of David Harrington over there at Apple because I had gone out a bunch of times to show the prototypes over the summer. And I got a call. I was going to a 4th of July party with my industrial designer, and it was Apple again. And this time it was another guy, Doug, and he was the head of all the stores for merchandise in the accessories division. And he said, "So how many are you making?" I said, "Well, we're gonna make about 10,000, 5,000 at a clip. That's all I've got." cash for from, you know, the little round I did. And
Right.
he says, okay, we'll buy all 10,000. I was like, huh? I was like, what?
Wow.
So yeah, that was crazy. So that's how we launched our product. And I mean, from there it was a pretty crazy ride with that product. I mean,
And so
who'd have thunk it?
that was how the company got started, but you eventually transitioned into a variety of other devices as well, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I had all these ideas, and then people were coming at me with ideas. And I think what happened was I started to really build a team of folks that, you know, were engineers, electrical engineers, embedded software engineers, um, and all the way through to marketing and customer service. I really felt strongly that I wanted to keep it all in house. I didn't want to outsource anything, even at the very beginning. And I think that boded well for me and for the company and for the customers. Um, but yeah, we started making other things, and then in 2014, we got taken in a little room, and at CES, Apple made us sign an NDA that like literally had nothing on it. It was called Project Spruce, and you're going to be introduced to Project Spruce, and you can't talk about it, and you swear that you won't talk about it, and blah blah blah, and all these ramifications if you talk about
Right.
it. And so I signed it. Of course, I didn't give a crap. I was like, okay. And it was literally papered up with like brown paper bags on all the windows in this little room. And we're sitting there, and they're like, so we're gonna go into home automation, and we're gonna call it we're gonna call it HomeKit, but we're gonna really own the space and create this ecosystem, and we want you to be one of the partners. And so it was like myself, which is iDevices. I think at that point we had like 25 people, and Schlage locks, Chamberlain garage door openers,
Right.
you know, Broadcom, multi-billion-dollar companies, and then there's iDevice. I was like, wow, we are so hitting above our belt, our weight right now. And so, yeah, that was how we got into home automation. We started doing things. They asked us to make the first product we made was it's called a iDevices switch. It was basically a plug anything into it and plug it into the wall and control it. But then we branched out to receptacles, outlets, all that sort of good stuff. So it was an interesting ride. I mean, they tried to acquire our company, and that was a monumental point in my career. I think sitting in the office across from Tim Cook's office up there, you know, with their biz dev people, you know, that was pretty cool. And that I'm not gonna lie, that was like a wow moment. I was, I didn't have many words at that point.
So you said they tried to acquire the company, and did you sell to Apple or did you sell to someone else?
No, I split the company up. So it was really hard to sell the product to Apple at that point because we had iGrill and then the iDevices kind of home automation stuff. So it was kind of a mixed bag. So I reached out to the new CEO. We had almost done a deal with Weber right when I started the company in 2011, and they walked away at the last minute after signing a deal. And that
Oh
deal was
wow.
only yeah, it was only for 4.2 million. I was selling it to them for, and they said, "No, we're not going to do it," and they walked away. But regardless, they got bought out by Byron Trott, big private equity guy, and I met with their new CEO, and he said, "I want it," and I was like, "Okay, this is good because I can sell this part of the company, just basically the IP and the product line, and then still hold the iDevices home automation, and it'll clean it up and make an easier deal in the future." And so, yeah, for negotiating 101, right? You never say a number. And I'll never forget, I was driving to Chicago to do a big speech, and he was pinging me, and he was like, "Listen, you gotta just give me a number, Chris. You know, give me a number. What do you think it's worth? I don't know where your head's at. What do you think it's worth?" I said, I'm not telling you. You tell me what you think it's worth."
Yeah.
He goes, "Give me a number." I said, $100 million. He's like, "You're out of your goddamn mind." I was like, "I gave you a number. Now you come back with a number. What's your number?"
Right.
And so, but I will say that Steve, or not Steve, the Weber family. I mean, you know, one of the guys I became friends with, he said that was the most expensive mistake he ever made because we sold that to them for 47 million in 2016, and they had it bought for 4.25 million in 2011. And so, that was a costly mistake.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't realize that they had the opportunity to buy it or like way back when you started. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it was. I mean, Zuckerberg definitely helped us. He posted on his Facebook page using our iGrill, blew it up. That was huge. Jeff Weiner over at LinkedIn posted best IoT product ever invented. So we got some really good free publicity. We didn't know them from Adam. They bought them from us, right off our website. We didn't know who they were.
That's so
Um,
funny.
so yeah, but and then I
So
sold the
so
rest of
you
the company in
sold
17.
so you sold the iGrill piece, and then you ended up also selling the rest of iDevices as well.
Yeah, I sold the rest of iDevices. We started running a process in uh, late 2016, around October timeframe, and we were approached by a number of folks, and we actually ended up selling to Hubble out of Shelton, Connecticut. Great, company, kind of a quiet company in terms of not a lot of publicity, or you don't know them really well. But they came in and bought the company for 60 million. In close, I actually signed the deal January 4th, which is my birthday, while out at CES in Vegas, my 40th birthday.
That's
So
awesome. That's so cool. But you stayed on though. You sold the company to Hubble, but you stayed on for a few years to run the organization, correct?
yeah, no, I look. I mean, it was my family. It still is. I still talk to a lot of folks there. you know, I grew it to, when we sold, we were 65, but I knew everybody. I tried to really I used to do CEO lunches and sit with every employee and, get to know them a little bit, learn a little bit about their situation. Um, and I think that's what allowed me to be successful is like, I truly value people and the relationships created. And I take a real interest in it. And I think that they get that I'm genuine. I'm not just a lip service and looking for them to work harder for me. I really do care, and I don't know. I don't think that should be unique, but maybe it is in this day and age, which is really sad at the end of the day.
I mean, I think it probably depends where you work, but I think the fact that, to your point, 65 people was a small team that you wanted to make sure you knew everyone, I think is fantastic. So ultimately you decided to sell the company. I want to just kind of go back to that point in your career. Was the goal when you created this thing to eventually sell the company, or was your goal to start it and then hold on to it, like, or did you really not even have a plan when you originally kind of drew this with at your kitchen table using your mom's colored pencils?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, a lot's changed, and life is about learning and maturing. So I would tell you right now, every business I go into with an expectation of either an exit or some sort of transition, right? But when I started, I didn't have a clue. I was just like, this would be really cool. I could sell a bunch and make some money, and it would be a lot of fun, and it'd be really cool to see it in Apple stores and Best Buy.
Yeah.
I think when Nest sold, for 3.4 billion, that was like a whoa, moment. And I definitely stood up and took attention. I was like, wow, maybe this company is worth a little bit more than I thought. And so that's when we really, started thinking about, do we build a big sales force and grow it ourselves and try and, go through all of that, which some of my investors really didn't have the appetite for, which would have required more capital. Or
Right.
do we just take it and partner with the right, distribution channel team that, and have them acquire us and then put it through their channels and let them grow it. And that's what we ended up doing.
Interesting. And I think, I just want to pause here for a second, Chris. And this is a compliment to you. You didn't have a computer science degree. Like, you didn't go to school for electrical engineering or computer engineering or product design or any of this. I mean, to your point earlier, you went to college for 3 months, but the reason that you got the reason, and I just say this because I want to just give you kudos. The reason you got the product done was because you had a vision, and you just executed on it. And I think you executed on it. You pushed people hard, with your small team, and you asked people for help with things like Apple as an example, right? By emailing Apple, and weren't afraid to do that. So I think those are just three important things I wanted to highlight, because I think a lot of people wouldn't have expected someone with your skills, right? And this isn't like me being negative, but like someone without all these skills we just talked about to be able to launch a product in a company like this.
Yeah. No, I get it. It's different. I've definitely had a different path than most. Um, and yeah, I think it just comes down to hard work. I did things that I didn't even know I was doing, to be honest, Nick. Like I did market research, but I just wanted to ask people like what they thought of the iGrow. So I walked around West Hartford Center with a notepad and our prototype and said, "Hey, would you mind sitting and talking to me for a second and
Yeah,
let me show you this thing and see what it is? And would you buy it and how much would you pay for it?" And now I know exactly what that is, right? Like I'm obviously much more educated since my 14 years, 13 years ago. But it's interesting. I think sometimes it's just not having the fear or the inhibition
yeah,
and not thinking that you're so high and mighty that you can't do those things. Like I did my own videos for how to with iGrill. I still have them. They're hilarious. I mean, they are like so bad it's not even funny. But it's like, hey, I'm Chris Allen from iGrill. Check out this iGrill. This is how you pair. And I showed all this stuff, and I had all these aliases when I was first starting. So I made up all these names of people, and I had them in my email Outlook. And if you like emailed in for customer service, I might have been Nick. If you emailed in for accounts payable, I might have been Jason. And I had like
that's
all these.
amazing. That's amazing.
Uh,
That is so
do,
funny.
do whatever
So,
you gotta do.
no, I wanted to highlight that because I think it kind of shows what the possible is, and that's why I wanted to make sure we pointed that out. So let's talk about you. You sell the company to Hubble, which you said you've really enjoyed working with. You stayed on after you sold the business to Hubble to run iDevices, and then you left. You just left just recently, right? So I think you just left.
July.
Yeah, this year.
Yep.
To start another business. I'm so shocked. You started another company. So tell us about tell us about iCleanse, because this is your latest business. And I want to just pause for 1 second, Chris, because what we'll do is we'll make sure to link to your LinkedIn profile in the show description on YouTube and on the podcast. So if people want to get in touch with you, they'll know how to find you on LinkedIn. And we'll also link to the iCleanse website if people are interested in the product, which this is, when I read about it, I was like, wow, this is super interesting, especially with everything going on with COVID, right? And how paranoid we all are about everything from a cleanliness perspective. So share with the audience, what is iCleanse? And I think this was a little bit different because I don't think you started this business from scratch. You
No.
acquired the business and now you're running it. So share the story with us.
Yeah, I mean, so part of what I did after I sold the business was I did venture capital. It's kind of the cool thing to do, I guess, for people after you sell a business, you invest in other people's businesses. I don't know. But I invested in this company called ReadyDoc. And when they own the patent on UVC disinfection within an opaque box. And they also own the patent on UVC disinfection while recharging any type of device. So I was like, wow, those are good patents. I invested in them. Well, management wasn't able to really grow it. They never really capitalized themselves correctly. And in the midst of a pandemic, I'm sitting there in the June timeframe, and I was just like, this guy's still not making it. I don't get it. This is such a needed product. So I said, let's go ahead and acquire this. And so I went out to a couple of my investors from Devices Days and some other folks that I knew, and put together a quick round, and we bought the company. And I brought in some of my team. My team right now consists of my best friend Mike, who I've known since I was 5. He's my COO, and I brought in Kelly, my CFO from iDevices. Brought in some other talent from iDevices that had left and come back. Some of my designers and VP marketing. And really, what we're doing is we're taking this technology, rejiggering it a little bit, redesigning it, because I'm all about the user experience and always have been. So that's paramount to me. And then applying the patents so that we can really, there's other folks that are infringing out there, and we'll go after those folks. But then really figuring out how we can innovate in this space, because I think from my point of view, the world's forever changed. Right? there's just going to be, a different outlook on cleanliness, sanitization, and how you
Agreed.
disinfect things.
Yeah.
And I think, with this product, I think we can really help people. I've known a lot of people that have passed away from COVID, and unfortunately, and I'm sure everybody does. And it's, you know, your phone is literally like a petri dish. I mean, it's disgusting. Uh, and in nursing homes and hospitals and all these different places, you know, and I would say in general, even in restaurants and stuff, those tablets that they use, they need to be cleaned and disinfected. And we have the ability to do it quickly in 30 seconds to 99.9% kill rate. So I'm excited about it. And we have some new products coming in April, May, that we're really excited about. So I think it'll be a game changer. You'll start to see some more innovation out of us from what is like a big metal box right now to something a little more sexy.
And Chris, so the idea here, just to make sure my audience understands, is you actually take like a phone or a tablet, you put it in this box, and it sanitizes it not with chemicals or spraying something on it. It actually does it with light. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so UVC light essentially. So I've become somewhat of an expert, not a true expert. I don't help myself out to, but I am the CEO. But it basically takes UVC light, and UVC light, when it hits any type of surface, whatever surface it hits, if there's bacteria there or a virus, it will break down the RNA of that virus so that it won't be able to replicate and thereby dies. So
Hmm.
it's very nice and convenient. It doesn't require, a lot of the wipes, if you really read the wipes, you have to like wet it and keep it wet for anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes to really disinfect. So that's not convenient. Who the hell is going to do that? So this, you can put it in there, disinfect it within 30 seconds, um, and go on, about your work day or whatever you might be doing, confident that you've, at least cleaned it between that and the next patient, the next, person using your tablet or
Right,
whatever it
right.
might be.
No, that's really cool. And like I said, we'll link to the iCleanse website so people can check that out. So, so I want to just pause here for a second because we've just run through a lot in just about 40 minutes, Chris. And I know we have a lot in common, so we could probably talk for hours, but I don't make my podcast that long. What what's one thing that like you really enjoyed about being an entrepreneur? And I mean going all the way back to being a paper boy, mowing lawns, doing landscaping, owning your own your own financial consulting firm, doing the Allstate business, doing iDevices, and now iCleanse, right? Like, what is that? What's the one that you really loved about being an entrepreneur this entire time?
I love the people, man. I really do. I think I'm just a people person. I don't enjoy like large crowds and things like that, but I enjoy people and helping them, whether it's my employee, whether it's my customer, even a contractor or somebody that I'm working with. I enjoy those interactions. I think we all do in some way, shape, or form, but that's really my highlight. Like I walk into every meeting that I go into, and I used to say this all the time at iDevices. If you think you're the smartest person in the room, you're usually the dumbest. I walk into every meeting that I go to, and I take something out of that with me, right? And it's a piece of what I carry forward. And I've been blessed to meet some fantastic people and work with some fantastic people and learn from some amazing people. And I think that's an amalgamation of all of that that's given me the ability to be successful. Um, so I would just say the people.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I want to ask one more question before we close with the same question I ask every guest. We talked before about jokingly you called yourself impatient, right? And how you move at 100 miles an hour. And I want to just ask this question because I think it's really important for my listeners, especially I have a lot of like early career professionals that have maybe just graduated from school and are in their first job. Explain why being impatient is sometimes good and sometimes bad, and how do you harness that impatience for good? Give us some thoughts around that.
Yeah. So I've become more patient in my old age. But
You're
I've
not old. I already told you that. You're not old.
but I think impatience has made me push people. Not, and I'm not, I'm not the boss that cracks the whip and stands over you, but I push people to think outside the box because I have no classical training, I didn't learn how to engineer a product from the ground up, right? I say why all the time. I'm like the 2-year-old like that sits around and says, why, daddy? Why? And I constantly say, why are we doing it this way? Why can't we do it this way? Why can't we try this? Why, forget what you learned at XYZ company. Let's do it the way we learned it here at our company. And, I think that's given me the ability to push people and make them think differently. On the downside, sometimes you can rush things too much and you have mistakes that, you fall flat on your face and you got to get back up and dust yourself off. But failure is inevitable. I mean, if you listen to Bezos, I was just at a conference before all this happened with him. And, he said they have to be making $1 billion mistakes at Amazon.
Yeah.
And, I'm not making $1 billion mistakes. Let me tell you, I ain't got his kind of money. But, you need to make mistakes so that you can learn and your people can learn. And when you're successful and you've pushed them outside their normal comfort zone, they're like, wow, you can do it differently. It isn't just like the one straight, narrow road.
Right. Yeah, no, that's interesting. And I look, I think most innovation has come from failure and making mistakes, to your point. So I think that's a great thing to highlight. So Chris, thank you so much. I know you're taking time away from your family to do this tonight. So I want to say thank you for making time to be on the show. I always close with the same question with every guest. What is the one piece of advice you'd give my listeners that's helped you reach your full potential in your career? So you've obviously had a very successful career. What's the one thing that's helped you be so successful throughout your I will still say short career because I think you're a young guy despite your old jokes. What is that one thing you'd share?
Let go of the reins earlier and give people the freedom to do what you've hired them to do. That's when your success flourishes. When you try to be the one person that does everything or the one person that micromanages everything, you'll never be successful. I think the best advice I ever got was hire great people, surround yourself with great people, and then everything else will fall into place. I add the caveat to that I always say is hire great people and then empower them to do what you hired them to do unobstructed, right?
Yeah.
And it's really hard. I get it. If you're an entrepreneur, like your product, your software, whatever, it's your baby. And nobody can do it as good as you or nobody knows it as well as you. But you'll never get anywhere if you try and do it all yourself. It's physically impossible. There ain't enough hours in the day. So let go of the reins.
Yeah, no, I think that's really well said, and I think that's hard for a lot of people because it means you're trusting individuals to do something that you might think you're better at doing, but I think to your point, you can always learn from others. So I love that advice. So Chris Allen, thank you again. We're going to link to your LinkedIn profile for everyone to get in touch with you, Chris, and we'll link to the iCleanse website if people are interested in your latest venture. I just want to say thanks because this is. As someone who's been an entrepreneur themselves, I'm completely inspired by your journey. I love how humble you are. I love how you really just connect with everyone that you meet with. So keep up the awesome work and appreciate you making time tonight.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, everybody. Good talking to you.
Thank you.